I'm Bill Nelson, Director of the Sidney Kimmel Comprehensive Cancer Center at Johns Hopkins. And today I get the privilege of representing the 35,000 members of the American Association for Cancer Research, or AACR, the largest and most prestigious cancer research organization in the world. This week, 19,000 cancer scientists, cancer physicians, and the like are all gathered here in Philadelphia to discuss the latest findings, the latest data, the biggest breakthroughs. And today, the AACR is proud to partner with ABC News and Dr. Richard Besser to give you a view at what a tweet chat really looks like. We're going to go behind the scenes with this newfangled tool called a Periscope, and you'll get to see how we really make the food here, how we really do everything in this tweet chat. So let's go over and meet the biggest leaders in cancer research organizing this meeting and the like.
Besser's on. Besser's watching.
So first, we have Jose Baselga, a good friend from Memorial Sloan Kettering. He's now the president of the AACR. He's got to take on these 35,000 people and represent them through the next year. Our past president, Carlos Arteaga, you can see how relaxed he feels at this moment. He represented us through the last year. We have Lou Cantley from Cornell Medical School. Lou Cantley put together this meeting, 19,000 scientists with all the data, how he organized this in a way that anyone can understand, only he knows, but it's worked really well. We've learned a ton of new and exciting data here. And then over here, we have in this corner of the Twitterverse, we have the engine room, where we have in real time people answering questions, responding to posts and the like. We have Anna Marie Ciccarella, who is a patient advocate, and along with Emile Liu from the University of Minnesota, they ran a session trying to bring together the power of social media with researchers. They tend to be nerds. They're good at getting onto social media, but their footprint isn't always what we want. And cancer advocates. So can we create the right kind of information exchange so that everyone can benefit from the new revelations at a meeting like this? And we have Ray Du Bois from the Biodesign Institute at Arizona State. He's one of the pioneers in cancer prevention. In the back row, we have Tom Lynch from the Yale Cancer Center. Tom's one of our lung cancer experts. He also knows a lot about cancer from the perspective of how we deliver care. And as we go finally, at this other end of our engine room here is Wafiq Eldiri from right here in Philadelphia, one of the research leaders, a great molecular biologist from the Fox Chase Cancer Center. So first, we're going to put Jose Baselga, Pepe Baselga, on the spot and tell us, why are so many cancers so hard to cure? We're making some progress, but not as much as we need to. Why are so many so hard to cure?
We are making a lot of progress, but we're still not curing many tumors, and that's a great question. And people are asking this all the time. The reason is that cancer is a very complex disease. We have over 200 tumor types. So there is not such a thing as a few cancers. There are many diseases. They are different. Every cancer has a different cause, has a different genes that are altered, has different therapies. So we are dealing with a very complex problem. However, we are making progress. Our cure rates are increasing. Today, overall, our cure rates at 5 years are close to 70%, and that's a great improvement just from a few years ago. So I think we need to be optimistic, and cancer research is really making great strides towards curing more cancers.
So what is cancer research? How does it work? What do the researchers do? What do they take on? What kind of questions they ask that they bring to a meeting like this? What is cancer research?
Yeah, so first of all, I think I like to make the point that cancer research is very, very important, and that the public needs to be aware of cancer research, needs to know what is going on, because it's the only way we are going to increase our cures. Cancer research is a very broad term, and basically is anything that from basic scientists in the lab, from the basic chemist to the people who are taking care of patients, they're asking questions, trying to understand what cancer is, how cancer is generated, then devising ways how to treat cancer. These are the people that are in the lab working with the genes, trying to develop therapies that attack these genes that are abnormal or the abnormal proteins, from the clinicians that are bringing new therapies to patients, and they can see how patients that had not good therapies in the past can benefit from these new approaches. So it's a huge community of, it's a family of investigators. We have 35,000 of those researchers in our society, so it's a true large family. And I think that Being a disease so frequent as it is, the public needs to become familiar with the issues, and also in order to help us, we need everybody to be engaged in this effort, and also help us in securing funds so that we can support some very important initiatives.
So the great revelations we're seeing today, the new cures that we're seeing, these are built on research that we did over the past several years. The research we're doing today is going to lead to the cures tomorrow. And as you mentioned, we're very concerned, all of us, and I know you are particularly, about the level of federal investment in this kind of research. Are we putting enough of an investment in the research that will lead to the cures tomorrow?
So we are not, and this is a big concern. First of all, this is a time of great discoveries, and we're making so much progress, and what's limiting our progress is our lack of funds. Over the last 10 years, in actual dollars, the amount of federal support for cancer research has decreased by 25%. That's a big cut in support. And it's a shame, because we could do so many more things. Look at what we've seen today in this meeting. The advance of immune therapies, the advance of the gene therapies that we are doing with the genetic cells, the new genomic therapies. So there's so much more we could do.
All right, so let's go over to our engine room corner of the Twitterverse and ask directly, Anne-Marie, what are we hearing?
What are we hearing? There's a lot of noise going on. I see Dr. Besser is talking about an article that was posted today. We have from behind me talking about the way cancers mutate constantly and more rapidly. So we're getting a lot of science out there. I see people from the Breast Cancer Research Foundation jumped on, and actually let's just take a quick look at what's happening in real time. How many people we got going on here? There's over 100 people participating as of right now, thanks to the folks at Simpler who track this stuff. So keep coming. All
So
my buddies.
Periscope is really opening the doors. Wafik, she mentioned talking about mutations and how they arise. Where do the mutations come from? Do they come from just mistakes in copying DNA? Do they come from a barrage of cigarette smoke and other carcinogens? How do we get mutations?
A lot of them come from people smoking too much, and that's part of what makes cancer so hard to treat. And so if more people do stop smoking, we can have a big impact on how easy it is to treat cancer.
Well, I guess I should focus on what is a mutation.
A mutation is a change in the DNA sequence, and when it happens in a critical gene that suppresses cancer, that's when we have a problem with cells dividing uncontrollably and turning into difficult-to-treat tumors.
So cancers, in many ways, are a collection of mutated genes or defective genes. It's cancer itself, I guess.
Yes, it takes a series of these changes in cells that then cause them to start to grow and evade the immune system and become resistant to the available treatments like chemotherapy and radiation.
So why don't we move down to Tom Lynch. Tom, Dr. Richard Besser just asked a question. What is he up to? What is he saying? What's he asking?
Richard Besser. So Richard's wondering why are cancers so difficult to treat? Why is it so hard to cure cancers? And I think it's because of, as Jose was mentioning earlier, the complexity of cancer. It's not one disease. It's because the fundamental machinery inside cells that are driving cells to divide in a way that is not regulated. When you attack that machinery, you're attacking the machinery within all of our cells, which makes it even harder. So there's a lot of challenges, but I think as we have seen at this meeting, more hope than ever that we're beginning to understand what really drives cancer and understand how we can turn the body's immune system, plus how we can interfere with those networks to make a difference.
So here's a question for you, Tom. You spent your life working on lung cancer, which is one of the hardest to treat. So you confront this problem every day. And yet at this meeting, we've seen things, as you mentioned, the immune treatments, that make us think that lung cancer may be something that we can conquer to a large extent over what, do you think, the next 5 to 7 years?
Well,
what's going to play out?
5 to 7 years would be terrific. I think 5 to 7 years is a little bit optimistic because what we've seen with these immune treatments is the immune treatments are able to help extend life for many patients with lung cancer. What the next big step will be is extending life into cure. And we've seen that now in melanoma. We see melanoma patients that used to have advanced disease that we couldn't cure, that now we can cure. So the hope is, as we understand which patients are benefiting from lung cancer treatment, we may be able to extend that to more and more patients.
So there's.
All right, why don't we go get one comment from Ray Du Bois. Ray, in this excitement over new treatments for advanced metastatic disease, I mean, they're really astonishing, right? You're talking about conditions that were incurable, life-threatening conditions. Sometimes I think that we have forgotten in our exuberance that if we could prevent these cancers altogether, then we could help so many people not even ever have to hear the words, "you have cancer." How are we doing in cancer prevention?
Although we're not doing as well as we should, Bill, and I think we've talked about smoking already and how that stopping smoking can prevent some of the damage to DNA that causes cancer. But if we do simple things like get a little exercise, do some screening with colonoscopy, mammograms, and avoid UV exposure by the sun, we could prevent a large percentage of cancers just by taking care of very simple things that we do in our normal daily lives.
Super. Let's get one last thought from our social media guru as a scientist. He's a plant of ours. So what's trending? What's happening?
So there's a lot out there. I'm seeing, as expected, a lot of interest in chemo prevention, how to screen appropriately for cancers. Obviously, I think with a lot of press releases here at AACR, there's been a lot of excitement about immunotherapy, and then the 60 Minutes profile at the Brain Tumor Center a few weeks ago. It's really a hot topic, so I think this is of great interest, and I think our job and also out in the community and advocates like Anne-Marie are really going to spread the word to be able to translate this into normal and plain English for society, and I think this is going to benefit patients. And I myself am looking forward to go back to the University of Minnesota and explain to my patients the great progress that's been made.
Which reminds me that those of you who are following us on Periscope, throw out your question to us. I know this is a new tool, it's a new gizmo. If your site is working, make sure it gets upgraded, but throw out some questions. We want to take them on. We've got the world's greatest collection of experts to answer anything. So let's turn now to another one of our leaders, past president, as of yesterday, I guess, past president of the ACR, Carlos Arteaga. Carlos, what are the breakthroughs that we're seeing that are going to be of the greatest benefit to patients? Many of them presented at this meeting, but others over the last couple of years. What is really going to help people?
Well, thank you for the question. I think I can think of a number of breakthroughs, but there are two areas where I would like to concentrate. One is what is called precision medicine. Precision medicine is the discovery of gene alterations in tumors that identify vulnerabilities in those tumors that can be exploited with specific targeted therapies. I can think of examples in EGF receptors that have mutations of the EGF receptor. There are drugs approved for those cancers. That's one breakthrough. Another one is the discovery of mutations in a gene called RAF in melanoma, for which there are a number of therapies approved. Then a number of therapies approved against the HER2, the HER2 oncogene. 20% of patients with breast cancer have that type of cancer. And we have now 4 targeted therapies approved for HER2-positive breast cancer. So that's a major breakthrough. Another one is the approval of PARP inhibitors, like olaparib, for treatment of tumors that happen in patients with BRCA mutations. I guess that was one breakthrough that came from the laboratory, where it was discovered that those tumors had a deficiency of DNA repair that can be exploited with this type of drugs, which are now approved for the use by patients. Then in the second area of breakthroughs is that of immunotherapies. These are therapies that harness the immune system of the patient and empower that immune system to attack the cancer, in many cases eliminate it or control it for a prolonged period of time. So I think there are a number of therapies approved in melanoma, in lung cancer. These are immune therapies that I would put in the category of breakthroughs. But I think there are many more. I don't think I do justice by just mentioning those two, but those are the first that came to my mind.
So, of course, you were talking about targeted therapies, which some people call personalized medicine. I, for one, don't like the term personalized medicine because all cancer medicine is personal, and I know you agree. So sometimes we now call this precision medicine, but I think precision medicine, targeted therapy is one of the exciting things at this meeting, and as you mentioned, one of the great breakthroughs that's helping people. One question that's popped up at this meeting, you're one of the world's authorities on breast cancer and its treatment, is that for many of our common cancers, we expect the number of cases each year to increase Now, part of this is that cancers often appear in people as they get older, and we have a greater fraction of the population aging to that age group. But there were some reports, even at this meeting, that breast cancer may even outpace this, that women having children later, early age of pregnancy, protects against breast cancer a little bit, but some of the choices that women are make may give an epidemic of breast cancer in the coming future. What do you think about that, and are we doing enough research to prevent it?
I think you are correct. I think we may see some incidence of cancer go up. Breast cancer is one of them. As the reproductive age of women expands with early menarche, perhaps of the increase of body weight, and also the late menopause, and the fact that women, for many good reasons, are waiting to have children later in life, it may well be that the incidence goes up some. However, keep in mind that early detection of breast cancer is also curative. If women do mammograms every year, they should be able to detect early cancers that may well be cured by the current standards of care. Now, the other question is more, is cancer incidence going to increase at large? That's a very difficult question. The most significant risk factor associated with cancer is aging. As we age, as the age of the American population is more prolonged now, we know that 1 of 2 men and 1 of 3 women over the age of 80 will be diagnosed with cancer. However, we would expect that with early detection, better quality of life, again, better screening, we should be able to detect cancers early and thus eliminate it with the current standards of care. We may see more cancer, but we may be able to cure the majority of them anyway.
So one of the questions that's been popping up is related to treatment sensitivity and resistance. As you know, very oftentimes for many of our treatments, some of the precision targeted therapies and some of the new immunotherapies will get these wonderful responses that last for a varying period of time, but then the cancer will start to grow again, somehow resistant to the treatment we had used before. We're learning a lot about resistance to the targeted agents, to the precision medicine, if you will. Are you getting from this meeting any bead on what the resistance to immunotherapy is going to look like?
I'm afraid that we don't know yet enough about what is the resistance to immunotherapies. It happens, not all patients respond. Some progress rather quickly on these therapies, and some eventually recur or progress after an initial dramatic response. Some patients maintain a response for a prolonged period of time. I think it's early not only to learn what are the markers that identify those tumors that respond. I think we're going to have to wait a little bit to understand what are the markers or the genes that regulate that recurrence of the tumors that initially respond to immunotherapies. We will have to wait a little while to get there.
So a final question for you, because I know you thought about this a lot when you were ACR president. I was trying to think of this, I think we met a quarter century ago. We were young,
right.
Idealistic, and energetic. We wanted to cure cancer, and we went after it. Are we supporting the young researchers that are showing up today who are going to cure this disease in the next quarter century? Are we supporting them enough?
That's a very good question. I think we can do a lot more in support of our young investigators. We have to realize that just about all the advances in cancer research that now save lives and reduce cancer mortality came from young investigators. I think I'm very concerned about the fact that there's not enough retention in academics to young investigators. Many people are leaving the field, and I think, to me, this is a major crisis. Perhaps the best thing we can do to improve cancer cures is to support young investigators, because they're going to have those brilliant ideas, those liberal ideas, unencumbered by any conservative thinking, that are going to get us to the next level in several years. What can the public do to support young investigators? Again, please talk to your representatives, talk to your political representatives, so that to tell them that you are concerned about this. I think that this has been a major initiative during my presidency, but we need to do a lot more to support them, because, again, if not, the discoveries and the progress in cancer research is going to dry out.
I can tell you one of the most exciting things about this meeting is we get to see these young researchers, and they are really good. So they hold the answer in the future.
Thank you.
So let's go back to the tweet chat. We got the engine room here. Ray, what's happening in the Twitterverse?
Immunotherapy, is it real? Is it hype? They want to know how it works. And
Well, there you go. Is it real? Is it hype? What's
It's
the answer?
real. It's real. There are patients with melanoma that respond well to immunotherapy. There are new checkpoint inhibitors that turn our own immune system on the cancer cells to attack and kill them. And so there's very exciting. A lot of new research, new findings were reported here at the meeting over the last few days. We have a lot more to learn, but this looks like it's going to be in the armamentarium for the future.
So Emil, what are you seeing? What's happening?
Yeah, along the lines of immunotherapy, I would also add that one of the things that are coming out at this meeting and even at last year's meeting is that these are not new fields that were just thought of in the last few years. These are, in many ways, old fields made new through new technologies. Some thought about immunotherapy as much as 100 years ago, but now we have the tools and the technology to bring this forward. Some of the immunotherapy trials that have been presented at this meeting for lung cancer and melanoma, just as two examples, have been fantastic and are really moving the field forward. And the hope is that clinical trials will expand. And just want to reiterate, it is vitally important for progress in the field for patients to be enrolled in clinical trials. So if you are a cancer patient watching this, then ask your doctor about trials or be referred to a clinical trial at another institution if needed.
Wow, for behind-the-scenes stuff, this is really good stuff, you guys. Anna Marie, one of the exciting things that's happened over the last, 10 or 15 years has been the increasing presence of patient advocates helping design experiments, design clinical trials, and really getting involved. This creates this bi-directional education of scientists of what the issues are for people who have the disease and the people with the disease. What are the scientists helping to go through to try and take it on? What are you seeing? Are you getting a call of patient advocate comments?
They're excited to hear that the patient advocates are being invited into the conversation. They're happy to know that there are patient advocates that can translate the medical language to the language that the patients can understand. We need to, as my buddy Dr. Lou said, get more patients into clinical trials. One of the things that I'm most passionate about is making sure that patients understand that is the way forward. Another advocate buddy of mine said, why settle for standard of care when a clinical trial may be a better form of treatment for you? So I try to help people understand that clinical trial is the way to go. If you're eligible, you go in.
So here's a question for you. I find that cancer patients who participate in clinical trials know an extraordinarily large amount about their disease, about science. Do you need an advanced degree to be a cancer patient?
No, you don't. You just need to know your body and ask a lot of questions of your doctors to make sure that they understand what's happening, something that you may think is insignificant. You just say it, because maybe it isn't. And the doctor can let you know, oh no, you know what, you shouldn't be having that tingling feeling, and it's the starting of neuropathy, and we can... So the communication needs to be there. The doctors need to respect the patients, which I have had only wonderful experiences with mine. They listen to every one of my concerns. I try not to take up too much of their time, though, because I'm mindful of that. I try to find the information in good, solid places, and keeping the lines of communication open, I think, is key.
So you sound convinced of what I suspect has always been true, that the actual quality of care participating in a clinical trial is really, really high. And many people looking over the design of the protocol, following things like numbness and tingling in the fingers to make sure that they ask. Is that true from the perspective of the patient advocate? Do you really feel it's the best care you can get?
I do. If they're, as I'm walking through the sessions, because I'm part of the Scientist Survivor Program, I'm getting to see early research being shown, and I'm thinking to myself, if I were newly diagnosed and that were available to me, along with whatever the standard of care is today, I would definitely go for it, because the safety's been there are stopgaps in place to make sure that we're kept safe. So I feel like it can't hurt if I'm not conscious of my side effects and letting the doctors know. The only thing I see is maybe this can help keep the disease dormant in me, or for my buddies that are dealing with metastatic disease of course any cancer, maybe it can stop the progression of disease. It's a winning situation in my view. Clinical trials are the way to go.
So Anne Marie mentioned the Scientist Survivor Program. which is a pairing at this annual meeting, a pairing of advocates and cancer survivors with scientists so they can get a mentored experience going to the meeting and engaging 19,000 of the cancer researchers over a week. The ACR puts out Cancer Today, which I have the privilege to be one of the editors, that addresses directly to the lay public to educate them. Let's get the other perspective on this. Wafik, you've been experienced with physicians getting together, scientists getting together with cancer survivors and things like the Scientist Survivor Program. How do you find, as a researcher, engaging directly with advocates, survivors, and the like?
I think it's very important for scientists to speak directly to patients and survivors to learn what's on their minds and to be able to think about how we design our research so we can address the issues that matter most to them.
So I think a lot of people think somehow that as a survivor or a lay person, and maybe they didn't major in biology or get a PhD in molecular biology, that somehow they're not so welcome along with the scientists. But I find that to be totally not true. What's your sense?
It is totally not true. In fact, as a physician, there's nothing I enjoy more than trying to explain. You know, if you can't explain it to somebody you're riding the bus with or your grandmother, you're not doing such a good job. So it's very important to be able to do that. And we need to be able to explain what our research is about and what the breakthroughs are, and as well as what some of the challenges are. It's very important for patients to know how hard people are working and that progress really is being made.
So here we have over our leadership crew. Carlos, Jose, what's happening? You guys are engrossed in something? Is there something trending?
This is so busy, so many tweets, so many questions.
You're just amazed at the sheer number, right?
Absolutely. We are tweeting our brains out here,
But this is great. People are interested. Yeah.
We'll keep a few of them in. Don't you have to do something later in the meeting? So what are they tweeting their brains out about at this moment?
So they are reacting to some of the questions that we impose. We respond to them about the immune therapies, about genomic therapies, personalized therapies. So we respond, they respond back, they retweet. So it's a great dialogue, and it's so fast. I mean, and it's great. So basically, all the right questions are being addressed about the promise of these new therapies. That's what's happening here.
So one question I have that did pop up earlier, we were wondering how to take on, which is rather than identifying specific biopharma companies, the biopharmaceutical industry has to be a partner in discovery and development of anti-cancer drugs and treatment. How is that working out, the collaboration between academic researchers and commercially oriented researchers? You know a lot about this. How is this working?
So we're working in two partnerships, really working together. Biotech companies and pharma, these are the guys that know how to make drugs, right? And we need therapies. So academia is the place where in the labs or in the hospitals where we identify targets, we identify what is a good idea to treat.
The key discoveries.
The key discoveries. And then in partnership with pharma, we develop the new therapies that then we check in the lab. And those that are promising, we bring to the clinic so that our patients can benefit. So the true partnership is back and forth. Pharma has a lot of good scientists, a lot of good resources that are totally complementary. So it's a team approach, and we need each other so much. And what's happening is that this level of interaction is improving. It's a very good dialogue. So we need to keep on working on this.
Super. So let's head back to the person who organized this whole meeting. As I said, I still can't imagine how you got 19,000 people to share their science and data in a way with themes that I could actually look at and say, I'm interested in one particular thing, and travel throughout the meeting and learn more and more about it. Basic science, as we were just hearing, is where the discoveries come from that are going to be the cures in the future. How does basic science work? Are we supporting it enough? How does it work?
So, basic science is really where we discover what we should be doing to treat cancer. And it's a long road between a basic science discovery and getting a new therapy into a patient. Although that road is getting shorter. I can give you an example of a breakthrough in basic science research that ultimately led to a drug that I think almost everybody's on this tweet has heard of, a drug called Herceptin. So the history of how that came about was from a very basic science discovery at MIT that there was a gene that could be, when transferred into a normal cell, would make that cell cancerous. And that gene we now call HER2. It's also called ERB2. And so that started a company, a pharmaceutical company, Genentech, on the road to making an antibody to attack that protein. And the drug was eventually went into a clinical trial. And in my opinion, that trial was not that exciting. It only gave a 3-month life extension to the patients in end-stage disease. But we have to get these approval trials typically in end-stage disease, and it's really hard to cure cancer at that point. So even that 3-month progress was far better than anything else that had been tested in that setting. However, once it was approved there, it then went into what we call adjuvant therapy. That means the patient who has the HER2 tumor gets it immediately after surgery, when there are very few cells left. But we know there's still some cells left, because in that day, in the 90s, if you had HER2 positive breast cancer at the time of diagnosis, your chance that cancer would come back and then ultimately be incurable was something like 90%. It was the worst possible breast cancer to have. Now, this drug, this targeted therapy, now goes in with adjuvant approach, and it turns out that recurrence rate now is something like 8%.
Yeah, it's amazing.
By taking that drug.
It's just amazing.
So millions of women, lives have been saved. The tumor never came back because they got this drug at the right time. That's really taught us a lesson about how to use that knowledge as we go into more targeted therapies.
So here's a question for you. I know you read every abstract that was submitted, but from a perspective of basic science discoveries that we're going to learn more and more about over the years as they move their way to revealing new targets for us, that new drugs at them that prove effective for cancer, what do you see happening? What has surprised you? What's excited you? CRISPR-Cas technology and its use to model. I'll throw it at you. What have you seen in the basic science? What are the discoveries that excite you the most that you've seen?
Well, I think that, you mentioned this one technique, CRISPR-Cas, which has really captivated the entire field of biology. It's the ability to literally go in and change genes in an acute time, in periods of...
It's like gene surgery,
days,
practically, yeah.
Days instead of weeks or months or even years. You can now do things incredibly quickly. And that's definitely changing approaches, how everyone is making animal models of cancer can be generated. You can go in and mutate individual sites, take cells, convert them in, get rid of turn on oncogenes or turn them back off acutely, very rapidly, find out what's going on. Is really incredibly exciting. Our knowledge of the immune system is so important. Again,
Stunning. That's stunning. I
these
agree.
lags, it took us a long time to figure out. We still don't understand the immune system and all of its complexities. But discoveries made in the 1990s about how various receptors on cells can tell the immune system, don't eat me, don't eat me. And it's taken a long time to figure that out. And we now realize that all we have to do is block those things and say, don't eat me, and now the immune system will eat the tumor. And so that knowledge, which again took about 20 years to get from understanding those molecules to actually making it work in patients. So that kind of transition between basic science discoveries to actually making it work in the clinic is a tough road. And in some cases, we just have to have the confidence that what we're learning from basic science really will be applicable. And we've got to get the basic scientists and clinicians talking to each other so that you can get the clinicians excited about, let's apply this discovery that was made in a laboratory into an actual new therapy.
So we've had a little bit of a theme in talking to the real leaders that are here related to the national investment in cancer research. And CRISPR-Cas technology came from some dedicated researchers studying curious phenomena in bacteria, for all intents and purposes. It seems as if that research, to many of us, is the most vulnerable to the inadequate resources invested or the declining resources invested. Do you share that view? Are we really worried about the pipeline of discovery that we can build on? Is that the most vulnerable component of research?
It is quite vulnerable because increasingly as money becomes tight, everyone needs to justify why is what I'm doing going to cure cancer? And the truth is, the CRISPR-Cas technology, as you say, came from looking at the microbes.
And it may help cure cancer someday, but that's not what they were thinking. That's right,
That's
yeah.
exactly, they were not thinking that at all. But, you know, we cannot underestimate how breakthroughs in technologies are going to impact the future. So DNA sequencing, for example.
Yeah.
You know, DNA sequencing was
It's
not
made possible precision medicine. Right.
Precision medicine is entirely a consequence of DNA sequencing. And, you know, today, if we told people 20 years ago that you could sequence the entire genome of a cancer cell in a day, when the first human genome took about, 5-6 years and about $10 billion.
Well, as you can remember, at this meeting 20 years ago, the big story would have been, we found a defective gene in a cancer, right?
Yes.
Totally different
Right.
now.
And now we can say we can assess every single event that's going on in your cancer, and we can do it with just a few cells. It's just incredible. You couldn't believe it. And this is all from new technologies. So over and over, new technologies are having a big impact. So I think if we look at where some of these new technologies are going to take us, I look at 5 or 6 years from now, you will go each year to have your yearly checkup, and they'll take 5 or 10 mils of blood, and instead of just doing sodium, potassium, glucose, etc., they'll also say, well, let's also look at the 500 most likely mutated cancer genes. We can find it in 10 mils of blood because the technology is now so sensitive. And so you will assess, is there any mutated gene floating around in your bloodstream that probably came from a micro-cancer somewhere in your body? You may pick up the DNA and not even be able to see a tumor. We can already do that in many cases.
So you organized that already at this meeting. There was a whole session. I went and checked out all the posters. How close are we getting there? We're getting very close very quickly, wouldn't you say, to those
Yes,
kind of tests?
I think this is a reality. It's going to happen. It's going to make diagnosis dramatically better. And importantly, at that diagnosis, you'll actually know what the drug to take is. And so you'll say, well, I have a BRAF tumor. Typically it would be a melanoma, but it could be a colorectal tumor. It could even be a lung tumor. It could be a brain tumor, because BRAF mutations happen in all these diseases. So I think in the future, you may be taking a BRAF inhibitor, because that's, you don't even know what disease you have, but the doctor says, take this drug, and after 3 months, we'll see if that circulating DNA is still there. If it's not there, you're cured.
And if it comes back, we'll be able to analyze it again and say, maybe the BRAF targeted drug isn't the right one. Maybe a different one will be the right one. And you can see that on the horizon.
That's where we're heading. And we know that we have to go in early in order to win. It's like I said with Herceptin. An end-stage disease, not such a powerful drug. But at adjuvant therapy, and this would be the ultimate adjuvant therapy, you don't even know where the tumor is yet.
Yeah.
That's what we call neoadjuvant, even before surgery. There's nothing detectable to pick up. But you know there's some cells there that are dangerous. So kill them early. I think that's where we'll win.
All right, thanks, Lou. We're going to head back to, again, our corner of the Twitterverse. We'll start with Tom Lynch in the back. Tom, you have a pensive look. What are you seeing?
I think, we've been talking a lot about basic cancer research. I think it's really important. A lot of the tweets that have been coming through have talked about the importance of funding basic cancer research. We put a lot of focus, a lot of emphasis in translation, in bringing new treatments to patients. But if we don't have discoveries that teach us and show us the way to develop those new treatments, we're not going to get there. And one of the things I worry about, Bill, I know it's one of the things you worry about, is that support for fundamental basic cancer biology has softened. And we need to increase the amount of funding that we have to support that kind of research. And I'm seeing that in comments from the patients. Patients want new treatments. Patients want therapies brought to them soon. And if we don't continue to fuel biomedical research in the United States, it's going to be very hard.
So here's one to drill down on that a little bit. You are the leader of the Cancer Center at Yale, one of the great universities with some of the greatest discovery biology portfolio in all areas of biology, at the School of Medicine campus, at the Science Hill up in the other part of New Haven. And I know you've worked, as we all have across the country, to bring that discovery pipeline ever closer and closer to clinical applications. So there isn't a chasm to leap over to get a good scientific idea to turn into a good treatment idea. My bias is I think we've largely solved that problem. And now the question is, are we doing the right investments to keep it going? Is that your sense?
Yeah, I actually agree. I think our investments, we need more investments to keep going. We also need, I think, another burden or another hurdle we have to overcome is the regulatory burden. you're at Johns Hopkins, I'm at Yale. We have an interesting protocol. It gets reviewed by a internal review board at Johns Hopkins and a separate internal review board at Yale. I'd be very happy to have Johns Hopkins review it or to have Yale review it. We duplicate a lot of regulatory review, and I think that's one of the other things that slows the discovery. And the one thing I'm picking up from the Twitterverse and from reading patients' tweets, patients want new treatments now.
They're impatient.
They're
Yeah.
impatient.
And they
For
should
good
be.
reason, they
Yeah,
should
should
be.
be.
They should be.
So it's a little nuanced question. The Food and Drug Administration, one criticism of them historically, and I think that they've taken some great steps away
Yeah.
from this, is that they're using 20th century principles to approve 21st century drugs, that they're not keeping up with the science. I think what you see here at this annual meeting where there are sessions on regulatory science and like that, that's not so true. But the bureaucracy is still a little bit of a problem, wouldn't you say?
So I think you're absolutely right. I think the FDA has been terrific.
They've been
Look
terrific.
at the drug crizotinib, okay?
Yeah.
Crizotinib was approved incredibly quickly for patients, lung cancer patients who have ALK translocated lung cancers. So the FDA has, I think, made huge strides. The problem comes with other regulations in the way research is reviewed at the individual university level, instead of realizing that we need to collaborate. And they're good regulations for 1950. They're not good regulations for 2010 because we've become much more interdependent on each other.
So you're talking about the basic patient safety regulations built on the Helsinki Accord and these kind of things that were formed out of abuses in concentration camps and the like, and yet clinical research doesn't really resemble that anymore, is what you're
Well,
arguing.
it
never
doesn't
did, I
resemble
hope,
it, but and I'm not arguing we don't need to. We of course
Protect
need safety and reviewing research thoroughly is incredibly important. I'm just arguing we can collaborate on that. And if a protocol is reviewed at Sloan Kettering or Dana-Farber or Yale or Hopkins or WashU or Vanderbilt, that's great. And I think that we can share and help expedite the
So
process.
rigorous review and less bureaucracy.
Rigorous review is essential, but it doesn't have to be duplicated 600 times.
So Ray, what are you seeing? Ray Du Bois, again, back to anyone talking about cancer prevention?
Sure, yeah, we had a lot of discussion about that, and it was covered the waterfront. I think everybody understands ways that they can help their patients prevent cancer. The latest discussion now is coming in on funding for cancer research. Do we have enough money to do all the things that we need? Is our federal government has the right supply of resources to make this happen? So there's a lot of discussion about that, and we all know that cancer research funding from the NCI has not kept up with the pace of inflation, and so we're not where we need to be, and we're really trying to do our best in many different ways to raise funds for cancer
Well,
research.
it sounds like that's the right discussion to have in the public forum as you get ready for a presidential campaign. Have we outed any of the candidates or prospective candidates on what they think about this problem? I believe we should.
I think we should. We need to get it into the discussion now because, as you know, foreign policy, all these other things pop up as you progress through the season. So this needs to be a question that's asked at the debates, and we need an answer from the candidates directly.
Well, when you've thought about this issue from really a high level in many different dimensions, not only are we talking about the cures for cancer and other dread diseases, but there's another angle that we don't talk so much about in a meeting like this, but it's our national competitiveness. We've built an incredible biologic research and technology capability in the United States that's unequaled anywhere. What do you think about that angle? Are we risking our competitiveness in the biologic sciences by the level of our investment in research?
Yeah, with the decreasing investment, we're really losing some of our competitiveness. If you look back over the last 30 or 40 years, we've built a machine that has really been everybody around the world is really jealous about what we have, and created more Nobel laureates and other research prizes in this biomedical research machine than any other country that you can think of. And we are losing some momentum there. And I think for every dollar that goes into research, there's $3 or $4 returned to the economy in drug development, device development, and all kinds of jobs that work in this industry. So it's not only important to solve the problem of people's diseases and treat those, but also this really generates a lot of support for the economy.
Well, super. Emil, what do we got?
Yeah, with,
You're in touch.
We've moved up to from chemoprevention and cancer screening. Now we're talking about a very important question: are rare cancers being ignored? This is a major question I know in patients I've had with rare cancers, and it's natural that at the grassroots level there are many organizations that come up with cancers that are more prevalent in society. But I just mentioned, I just tweeted out about Cycle for Survival. I know it originated out of New York City, Jen Goodman-Lynn. So a shout out to great efforts she did, rest in peace, and a lot of efforts, and that has continued and spread nationwide. Just as one example of something that grew out of the grassroots, raising a lot of money for cancer research, like rare cancers, types of sarcoma and others. A lot of it starts through the grassroots, but oncologists and researchers have to come together in cooperation as well. We don't want to ignore rare cancers. I think this concept of exceptional responders has really come to the forefront in the last few years, that we're going from a so-called N of 1, of finding and identifying the patients who have had literally an extraordinary response to a new drug or a new combination of drugs, and identifying the genomic changes that were in that patient, and seeing if they've also been found in other patients with tumors in that same cancer, and maybe even other cancers. There are so-called basket or umbrella trials that have really revolutionized the way we approach clinical trials. And the NIH has created an exceptional responder program that many centers nationwide are participating in. So I hope that it helps address some of the questions out there about rare cancers, but we still have a long ways to go. And of course, more money is needed.
So I always like that as an innately optimistic approach. Try and figure out when we have a tremendous success, why we had a tremendous success, rather than studying resistance all the time. So it sounds like a great way to go. So Wafik, we got you back there. You're manning your post. What are you hearing? What are you seeing?
There's a lot of interest in precision medicine and how we can really tailor the new treatments to each patient's cancer. And, you know, cancer is complex. We have to learn more about it and be able to have clinical trials available that suit each of our patients so that they can be really getting the right treatment. Because as you know, Bill, historically we didn't do that.
Well, we look for the median or average response, which is, as you heard from these exceptional responders, that's becoming sort of meaningless. I can always remember, as you can, having discussions with patients saying, you know, the median tendency is for people on this treatment to live about 3 months longer. But if someone had a tremendous response and lived 10 years, that person was happy. If someone didn't have that response, it didn't matter that someone else did at a certain level. We're trying to figure out who is going to benefit with this profound benefit and who's not, get the right treatment to the right person.
And even if we could understand who gets limited benefit, that's still useful, so that we could direct those treatments to those patients, and then the others can take something else.
All right. Look at this. We have a whole crowd of people eyeing something over here. Behind the scenes, we're in the scene now. What are you guys seeing? A lot of things. We've overwhelmed the system. Blinding light through the periscope.
So we're taking issues on clinical trials, why they are important, and the message that patients benefit from trials, that they do better. Issues about rare tumors, and we are just making the comment that rare tumors are very frequent, and that we should really invest in research with them. Issues about prevention, so many questions.
Yeah, I think the fact that if we can cure a rare cancer, chances are that drug that cures a rare cancer is going to be useful in many other cancers, because rare cancers, even common cancers like lung cancers, are really a group of rare cancers that all happen to be in the same location.
Well, Carlos, breast cancer isn't one disease. There are common breast cancers, less common breast cancers. What do you think?
You're right. Breast cancer is a constellation of diseases, and breast cancer is probably doing relatively well compared to other cancers because we realized that pretty early. And the other thing is that breast cancer was the focus of many cancer clinical trials. One comment that we're making in these tweets is that cancer clinical trials are not experiments. They really incorporate the standard of care plus hope, and that every patient out there probably should discuss with their physician the potential of the accessibility of a clinical trial as part of their care.
So you're saying the standard of care plus hope equals a clinical trial?
Absolutely.
Super. So now we can come back to Anne-Marie. We have you on the spot. This looks like the spot you're going to put people on. We were talking a little bit about cancer survivors, patients, patient advocates at the annual meeting. Are you a fish out of water here? Do you feel like so? Why did you come to this meeting, and what are you getting out of it?
I'm not a fish out of water. I feel like I'm getting, I'm learning from the researchers. I walk through the poster sessions. I may not be able to understand those little, where it is on the DNA, but I do understand that we're looking at a protein. We know that something is happening. We need to stop it. We need to start it. So I'm getting the overview. The scientists are incredibly wonderful with their time in answering questions. The program itself is fabulous. Dr. Barker runs a tight ship and has us doing presentations tonight. I have to go to a poster presentation that I had to prepare.
This is
for
a
the
boot camp, in other
That's
words.
right.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
right. It's a boot camp for patients, and the truth of not only patients, anyone that's in the advocacy community. And the wonderful thing about the program is it teaches you how to be a better advocate, I think. It teaches, I know what my place is. I have a unique voice. The researchers have the brilliant voices, and I have but my fingers do hurt, and what can I do about that? And they may have answers and they may not, but they may, I'm adding something to the conversation. So it's just the fact that everybody's working together and they're including us on the team and letting us be part of designing trials and lay advocate. I wrote a lay abstract, and the most thrilling moment in this meeting was I saw the poster in the poster session this morning for the abstract that I wrote, and it was funded, and it was if I could get Dr. Baselga's attention, it happens to have been a partnering PI grant between Memorial Sloan Kettering and Cold Spring Harbor Labs, and I worked with the two investigators, and to see that poster up there, knowing that I had something to do with it by writing the lay abstract, that's what this program teaches you.
So you got to quite literally live the dream of the young researcher. Did you stand next to that poster and answer all the questions the young people find very intimidating?
The researcher was wonderful. She was wonderful. She said, "Did you see all of this stuff?" I said, "Yeah." They took me in the lab and they let me see everything when, as it was like kind of playing out. But to see it now at a meeting like this, where 19,000 people, science people, are getting to walk past it and actually look at the research that was done. Of course, because my area of expertise is what my disease was, which was breast cancer. It was a breast cancer study, and it just was thrilling.
So the Scientific Survivor Program, as people complete the boot camp, they go back to where they're from, usually engage with the cancer center in their area, bring this knowledge back. Do you find that they're able to communicate this to their group of folks that they know, advocacy groups, support groups, their cancer center milieu? Does that work well? Like a spore or seed kind of model?
That's part of what the whole Scientists Survivor Program is about. My role is to now take what I've learned and bring it back to the community that I represent, or the patients that I interact with, so that I can give people hope and say, hey, you know what? There are things in the pipeline. I saw them present. We have to wait for them to be peer review, all the good stuff that goes on that is very science oriented that I now do understand. But I try to take that back to the patient populations that may not maybe understand the regulatory aspect of it, and pharma can't just dispense drugs based on what a scientist saw. That we have to protect people, and sometimes it comes down to really, really basic stuff. Sometimes it's a little more complex, but my job and part of the reason why I'm here, and I'm here on a scholarship program, is to bring this back to a wider community. Now, I'm a social media big mouth. My buddies are over there. So my platform is not only the volunteering that I do at Memorial, but also via Twitter, blogging, and other forms of social media to get the word out to as many people as possible.
All right. It looks like we're getting close to having to wrap up. As you can see from this incredible behind-the-scenes look at a tweet chat with some of the greatest researchers in the cancer field and patient advocates, I found the experience to be amazing in the response that all of you generated, the questions that you asked. You were really hearing what people were saying. They were communicating it well, and you were understanding it well, throwing significant posts, significant questions. And I think that all of us are poised to move forward in a tremendously wonderful way to cure cancer over the next, I hope, several years at least, but certainly get on the pathway to start to cure all the diseases that we call cancer as we recommit ourselves to investing in the research we do, to developing new drugs, new targets, taking new discoveries, 2 clinical trials that we heard a lot about interest in, so we can evaluate and make sure that the best kind of treatments for everyone, and then delivering these to everyone who's in need of cancer care. So this has been a tremendous experience. The AACR, working with ABC News and Dr. Richard Besser, fancy new technology, the Periscope. I hope it worked for you as well as it worked for us. Thank you.